Good evening, everyone. Calling the February 10th Norfolk School Committee meeting to order. I'll begin this meeting by reading our mission statement. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. Can I have a roll call, please?
Peter Schwalbe.
Lauren Vivas.
Medora Champagne.
Lisa Sheldon.
Ingrid Alardi.
Miriam Goodman.
Katie Young.
Our first item on the agenda tonight is public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak tonight? Seeing none, moving on to correspondence, which we also have none. In the school committee chair report, the next item on the agenda, we have 2 gifts to approve, both from the Norfolk PTO. The first gift is in the amount of $350, which goes towards a teacher stipend, AV support for Heritage Night. And the next from PTO is a gift of $400, which is a teacher stipend for the FK Active Kids Fall Session. I am looking for a motion to approve the gifts as written.
So moved.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you to the PTO. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to teacher negotiation update.
Teacher negotiations, well, our negotiations with the bargaining unit from the Norfolk Teachers Association, to formally describe them, have commenced. That's the update. We started last night. Our next meeting is scheduled for, I should know it off the top of my
March
head.
4th.
March 4th. So more updates to follow.
Great. That's it for me. Moving on to the superintendent report.
Sure. So because we just met a couple of weeks ago and I had a million things to highlight, we have less tonight, but I did want to really call out one event. So on Friday, January 23rd, which was after us meeting, the PTO sponsored Family Heritage Night. It was an opportunity to celebrate the cultural diversity and experiences of our different families. It was very well attended. We had over almost 400 people in attendance. A great night. We had wonderful feedback. You probably saw some pictures in the recent Wednesday's Words that have gone out. It was a really, really just nice community building event. So I wanted to thank the PTO for their efforts with that, and to all of our families and teachers and children who were able to participate. So. We actually have the Norfolk CPAC here, who are next on the agenda, who want to share some information and updates on what they are doing and who they are. So I would invite the CPAC to come join at the microphone, and we'll turn it over to you.
See.
Do you want to sit down?
Sure.
You can sit down.
Just a second, too. Hold a second.
Cool. Can everybody see?
Switch over.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike McCarthy. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Norfolk CPAC.
Kayla Costa, the other co-chair of the Norfolk CPAC.
Thanks for having us tonight. Just a little bit about us, who don't know what we do. We're a parent volunteer group that we provide support for families and children that are on IEPs or 504s within our district. We offer educational presentations for parents. We do workshops as well for kids. And one of our biggest goals this year and years past is the collaboration that we've been having with the committee, and Lisa as our liaison, and PTO, with Mary Kate now, with as Jen has moved on, but with Mary Kate. And we just want to talk about our monthly meeting is every second Tuesday?
Second Thursday.
Second Thursday. Today's the second Tuesday? Second Thursday of every month. We meet at 7 o'clock right here. And our agenda includes an open forum, but we usually also have just questions and concerns if any parents want to come and join and have, whether how they're doing with their IEP, whether evaluations, anything like that, that would have a, that we can help. And so if there's anybody who does not want to come to a meeting and has questions or concerns, we have our email that we can reach out to. And you can visit our website. That's right back here. Our board members, other than Kayla and myself, are Melissa Sear and one Karen Murphy. And then we have a slew of open positions that we will talk about a little bit later.
These are our open positions. We're going to come back to these, actually. We have board elections in April coming up, so not this meeting or next month, but the April meeting, second Thursday of April. There are currently 3 unfilled positions completely. I've been pulling double duty as both co-chair and secretary for going on 4 years now, and prior to that, I was the secretary for 2 or 3 or 4 years. So we've been looking to fill that position for a while. Chair of technology, volunteer and fundraising coordinator. Truly, we kind of all do a little bit of everything because we are a very small, tight-knit group, and we all have other obligations. We all have children, obviously, so we do our best to kind of pick up wherever anybody can. Some months, some people pull their weight more, other months, other people pull their weight more, but it always works out. So we'll talk about these positions a little bit more. If you want to go to slide 4, perfect. Yeah, so one thing we wanted to focus on tonight is that we're not inherently a fundraising organization, but we do fundraising so that we can offer the workshops and the events at school and the support of different inclusion opportunities at school that we can help support. So without the fundraisers, we would not be able to do the things that we do. But I did want to talk about a few of our annual events. These have kind of become over the last several years that Mike and I have been co-chairs together. This is kind of like our blueprint for every year, the things that we try to hold. So Trunk or Treat has been around longer than Mike and I. It's going to be in its 12th year come this October. This is at HOD. It also includes 3rd graders and preschoolers, and it really is like one of the favorite nights at HOD. It's gotten bigger every year. This past year, we had 225 families, so not just 225 people, 225 families, with so groups of anywhere from 1 to probably 7 or 8 per family. It's a really good time. One of the things we do there is offer a special 30-minute slot at the very beginning before it gets too dark. Minimal tickets are offered for our special education families, and we open it to the preschoolers as well, so they can have an opportunity to come before it gets too crowded, too dark. Maybe for some kids that maybe have some sensory needs. It's a time for them to be able to come and enjoy the event just the same as everybody else. We also offer every year, in conjunction with Dr. Tupper, a transition to the middle school night with the special education team at the middle school. And this is great because every family moving from 6th to 7th grade gets to go to the middle school, right, for a transition. But this is really focused on special education. So it's a great chance for parents who have kids with IEPs or 504s who are going to the middle school and have very specific special education questions for that special education team. And that usually takes place in May. We are going on our 3rd year of iCare. These are disability awareness readings. These are all volunteer readings by community members, mostly parents, but we also have a great group of individuals from our community that don't have children at school, but have volunteered their time to come and read to the kids at school. This is a picture of one of them reading to a preschooler here, preschool class here, I think in the corner. I think they find it as rewarding as the kids do, honestly. I did my reading yesterday in my son's 6th grade classroom. Also found it very rewarding. These are special books that are chosen from an iCare library at the school with the support of the special education team, Dr. Tupper. We also provide training to the volunteers so that they feel prepared and ready to both read the book, answer questions, also redirect maybe questions that are not appropriate or might make people feel uncomfortable. It's turning into a really nice program, and we look forward to it continuing for years to come. Those are ending, actually, they started in January, and they're ending at the end of this week. So we've had about 5 or 6 weeks of successful readings in. So every classroom gets a book read to them throughout that 6-week time period. And every grade reads the same book. We also, this will be a third year also on the immersion experience. This is offered to 2nd and 5th graders during their physical education classes in March. It's really a highlight. It kind of ends off Disability Awareness Week in March. Mike is working on getting those dates squared away with the school right now for next month. That's a great experience. There's a photo over here on the left bottom of the screen of some of the things that they do during that class. And Mike, I don't know if you want to add anything else about the immersion experience. It's really the kids.
Yeah, so this is Gavin. He's one of the ambassadors of the program. He's actually now at University of Illinois playing wheelchair basketball, of all things in the picture. What they're doing here is they're just working on like moving, and you're not using your legs, you use your arms. They do other things where you're blindfolded, and how are you going to tie your shoes? Different things with earphones if you're deaf, different things like that. And it's been great. The feedback has been unbelievable from the kids going home and telling their parents, and even talking with Dr. Tupper and the principals at both schools. It's been very successful, and we're glad that we can keep doing that.
Yeah. And the kids think that Gavin, he's like a superstar here. They think he is an absolute rock star. He's so wonderful with the kids. If we had more time, I'd show we have an amazing video featuring him that was on the news like 2 or 3 years ago. He's just a really remarkable young man, and he is great with these kids, and they've, I think, really valued the experience. So again, we are not inherently a fundraising organization, but in order to do all of these things, we do fundraise. The Trunk or Treat every year is one of our biggest standalone fundraisers. And then we've teamed up with the PTO, which we'll talk about a little bit later, on another fundraiser. We also really partner with our community organizations. The Lions have been very, very good to us and very, very amazing partners. They've given us various grants to help support different events and workshops for our parents and caregivers in the community, and also for our students. We apply for grants locally and anywhere that we can, Cultural Council, NCL, and we do the best to work with all the funding that we can raise and that we can gather from those grants. And we're able to also support Unified Game Day here at Freeman at the end of the school year, and also any year-round Unified Champion school programming that needs assistance, including getting it set up and running at HOD, as well as Falcons to Falcons here is an amazing program. We could have a whole nother presentation about that itself, but I will leave that there. So I think the next one's easy.
Yeah, next slide. Okay, so this is just to highlight a few of our past events and workshops that we've done with the fundraising that Kayla's talked about. Had an estate planner, Michael Kasberg, come in, talk about kind of special needs trusts, kind of how you may set up for down the road as you're planning. Navigating the IEP workshop, I know in conjunction with the school and how they do it, we've had, with the new IEP changing in recent years, we've had the ARC do a presentation for us, along with the Federation. Executive functioning workshops we've done in the past. Children's art therapy came to at both schools a few years ago. We actually had another art therapy workshop for this year.
For adults.
That was in the fall, but the presenter was ill, so we're working on getting that for the spring, so maybe March, April.
Yep.
ADHD workshops, social skills workshops we've done. One of the cool things at our general meeting is usually one of the staff in the district would come and speak on a topic we've had Jill talk about summer in ESY. We've had Falcons, so Ms. Fredette came and talked about how getting that off the ground for Unified Champion schools for us. Dr. Tupper's always done amazing. She's been there to answer questions and concerns and stuff like that too, so it's been amazing. And then just growing together fundraisers that we'll talk about on the next slide, but just working with the PTO on the last 2 years with that.
Yeah, with Growing Together, 2 years ago, the PTO reached out and said, we should do something together. You know, we really have a lot of the same interests at heart in the community and the kids at school. We should team up, like put our groups together and see what we can do. So we decided that having a really fun event for parents in the district would be a great idea. So the first year we did a Kentucky Derby theme, which was so fun. It was actually on the evening of the Kentucky Derby. So we showed the race live. It was great. It was a really, really great, and we learned a lot from that first year. People had a ton of fun. We took that the next year and ran with it, and we did our Casino Royale. That was last year in 2025. And with that, we were able to raise over $11,000. And right now, that's going to, we're working on right now using that money to put sensory paths in both schools. And there's a little video here. This is the Rentham Public Schools. They, by their PTO, supported a sensory path. So this is just a little bit about what our goal is here.
We ordered a sensory path for our school because we felt that children needed more movement breaks. They're able to hop along the path and do many different routines on the path, and it enables them to get sensory input into their bodies. Studies have shown that the kids are not getting enough movement, so it's a way to bring movement inside the building.
Every morning I get to see the kids come into the building and transition off the bus, and they come down the hallway, and almost all of them actually use the sensory path, and it aligns with exactly what we're teaching in the classroom as far as social emotional learning. We work on things like self-regulation, self-awareness, body space, personal space, kind of figuring out what you need in the moment of time, and many kids use it very appropriately. They kind of don't even miss a beat. They use the sensory path and they continue on towards their classrooms.
Does the sensory path make you happy? Yeah, it does. How does it make your body feel? So happy. So happy. Yeah. As an occupational therapist, I feel that the sensory path is very, very helpful. I work with a lot of children in the school, some with typical abilities and some who might have some special needs. And I like to use the sensory path before therapy treatment, sometimes after therapy treatment. A lot of times it helps reset and get their bodies also in motion. Sometimes I'll pick up the students for therapy and they might be having a difficult time or an emotional day, or they might be frustrated or anxious, and they will often be able to use the sensory path and kind of recover from that, the area or the place that they've been.
Yeah, so we hope maybe this time next year we'll be back here with a video of our own sensory paths at both schools to share. That is the goal. I don't know, that video makes me so happy, and I hope that we can bring the same thing to our schools. Yeah, you can go ahead to the next one, Katie, thank you. So this just showing for the Kentucky Derby, our first Growing Together event with the PTO. We've been able to help support the Active Kids program, which is we're offering free before school, multiple sessions at this point from that Kentucky Derby fundraising money that was raised. You just approved some tonight, actually, so it was perfect timing. So yes, we're looking forward to continuing our relationship and partnership with the PTO. We're already talking to them about some ways we can help make some other events more inclusive and available to all students who want to attend them. And with that, if we could go, I think we just want to kind of rehash back up to our elections. You want to?
Do you want me to go? Yeah, so again, this is just a highlight of kind of what the roles would be. I'm still in a co-chair spot. I will be on the board next year as well. We have some interest in Kayla's rolling off. She's going Connor's going to be in 6th grade, so there's going to be open spots. Technically, it's after the 2 years, so even though some positions are filled, all roles are technically open. Will be in open April to run for. So we're hoping to fill a few. The co-chair is we're going to have to fill a co-chair role. The chair of technology, which we need a backfill for. It's maintain the CPAC website. Help our social media platform. It's actually, it doesn't look like there's much here, but it's actually pretty vital for us so we can kind of get our information out there and easier to just have things for our events and workshops and how people can get in touch with us. So it's really important. Chair of Operations, we need someone in that role as the lead. I kind of do that now as kind of working with the Lions or Norfolk Rec and the people who need to organize kind of the just the ins and outs of like our fundraising or our like trunk or treat, parking, all of that. Work with the police on making sure everything funnels out okay and we're doing everything that we can. On the chair of marketing, I think operations and marketing are kind of like a dual role in how we've been handling it now. And we'd love to be able to have someone just in that role that we could kind of can delegate and kind of lead from what we should be doing and where we should be putting our information. Chair of Finance is currently held by Melissa Sear and does a wonderful job. It's actually a very important role for us. Talks about our monthly budget, all of us, the fundraising that Kayla was able to talk about earlier. How are we using those resources? Do we have enough to support all of the causes that we want to do? And then again, the secretary, hopefully we can backfill that. You sure you don't want to just stay and do that? Like, you can't. And then just fundraising and volunteer coordinator. It's not necessarily like a board role, but we'd want somebody, this is also a backfill, but just kind of reaching out to folks, kind of getting people to come and help us at our events other than the Lions or other than people within the school. So again, it's an important role, but more or less just having people come to our meetings, just be a part of what we do. And it's, the time commitment is, everybody's got commitments. So it's not like be here, there, and that. It's, we'd love to see you at the meetings, but again, we know life happens. So I hope we can fill a few of these roles in April.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say too about the elections is, you know, we have I'll call well-experienced board at the moment. So all of us have been involved and been on the board for several years now, and we all have older students at Freeman. We currently have no board members that have HOD students. So you can see where the problem is going to start to lie. I'm rolling off, my student is moving on to middle school. The year after that, we have another two board members whose students are rolling off to middle school. And then, you know, Mike, you will be right behind that as well. And that's our entire board right now.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, if we don't have people to fill these positions and start getting more involved, all of these things that we have shared will no longer exist. So what we're really hoping for is to start getting a lot more parent involvement. Come to a meeting if you can. Send us an email. Come as often as you like, as little as you like. And if you are really looking for a way to support and get more involved, come join us for one of these positions. It's not expected to be a full-time job. I already have one of those, and so does Mike. And again, we all work to support each other on the board. It's a very cohesive unit. And you can do, you know, what you can give is appreciated. So that's it. So there'll be a membership drive. We're going to be sending more stuff out from the school, but we're really working to help get especially some younger parent involvement so that we can continue all of these wonderful the annual programs and the other workshops and things for years to come. Because without volunteers, without the fundraising, we don't have any of it.
Do you want to talk about the...
Oh yeah, and then just really, really quick, we do have an upcoming free workshop for parents and caregivers, rethinking social development in a post-pandemic world. So this is really going to talk about how those organic practice opportunities for kids socially, just play. You know, now everything is, oh, meet me online to play, and everything has sort of changed a little bit, right? Those the way that kids interact since the pandemic. So Carolyn Cannell is a local psychologist who has come and done a social skills workshop for us before. So we are going to have like real examples, real like practical take-home strategies coming out of this. This is coming up on the 24th after vacation. It's going to be here in the Freeman Kennedy cafeteria. And again, it is free of charge for anyone who wants to come. We just ask that you register so we have a good idea of how many people are coming so we can set the room up appropriately.
Yeah.
And you can register on our website. That's it. Thank you so much.
Any questions for the CPAC board?
Just thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank
Clearly,
you.
you do
Thank
so
you.
much for our school and our community, and it's appreciated.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
They really do a tremendous job. And as we've, in some of the highlights, we've talked about some of the Unified Schools activities, Unified Champion Schools, and as you said, iCare just ending. There's just so much that CPAC has brought. And I've worked in many communities, and the programming that you offer, as well as the parent programming, really goes above and beyond. And you have a small skeletal crew of people putting it all together. So
Smaller
thank
by the
you.
year, it feels like.
Yeah. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank
and
you
I
very
hope
much.
we have some new parents that participate and
Yeah, we're not scary. we
follow
promise.
your lead.
Thank you.
I actually do
job.
have a quick question. Is there a minimum age to do the iCares training? I know you said people...
To be a reader?
Yeah, to be a reader.
I don't think that we've had anyone approach us that's not an adult. It is during school hours, so another student would have a very hard time doing it.
Okay.
But honestly, it's not a bad opportunity if there are like high school kids or if there's
Yeah.
college kids that need volunteer work or anything for their
Yeah.
resumes or their
Yeah, I think
college
that's a-
applications. It could be very impactful.
Yeah. As
And
long as
teachers
they
are present in the room. That
absolutely,
support
yeah, the teachers are
discussion, so it
always
wouldn't
present
be-
in case they need to step in at any point, or if a volunteer is really struggling, they can kind of look and be like, a little help here. They definitely don't leave the room and leave these volunteers, hanging.
Right.
So no, I think that could be a great opportunity as long as they attend the training, and the training is put on by our school adjustment counselors. So,
Yep, Andrew and Liz do a good job.
sorry.
Is the training in person? or
We
is
do it in person. We also, this past year, they recorded it, and we sent it to a few people that weren't able to attend in person.
And it is required to do the training if you haven't done so yet. So we,
That
Working through-
seems advisable.
we're working through the kinks over the last couple of years. It's where do I get my book? And so it's been better.
Yeah, but some of these books are very general around kindness and acceptance and inclusion, but some of the books are very specific about, there's some about autism, there's some different abilities. So it is important to come to the training and understand, your role in directing the conversation afterwards.
Cool. Great.
Great.
Thank you,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you so much for coming tonight, Joe.
Absolutely.
Next on the agenda, we have Tony Davis, who is our director of the Norfolk SAC program, who is here to talk about setting tuition rates for the fiscal 27 school year. So I'll turn it to Tony.
Hello. Our last rate increase was in 2021, and I am proposing a 5% rate increase going into the 2026-2027 school year, based on the increases in price for our supplies, our snacks, and to keep our wages competitive for qualified staff to work at the program. And Miriam and I worked together to look ahead to the following school year so that we weren't having such a large increase going into next year, so doing a 5% going into this school year and then another 5% going into the following to make it more manageable for families.
And Tony, in developing these proposed rates, you did look at our neighboring communities and what the average rates are. So this puts the SAC program in line with the market in this region.
It
for
does, yeah.
performance
Yep.
care.
So when I compared other local towns, we were on the lower end. So this will bring us back, or will bring us up to where other towns are.
And I would just add that the SAC program is a self-sustaining, self-supporting program.
So you can see in Tony's memo that she submitted the current rates for the before-school program for fiscal 26 are $10 a morning for the first child, $9 for siblings. Proposed 27 rate is $10.50, and for 2028 going to $11 a morning. And then you see the afternoon rates. It's a longer session in the afternoon, so those rates reflect that. Again, this brings us in line with other regional programs. I think the SAC program has been in high demand, but we have experienced difficulty staffing the program, recruiting new talent, maintaining and retaining staff because of the rates of pay and because it's a difficult schedule to work. You come in the morning, you go home, you come back in the afternoon for our staff that do both shifts. So keeping aligned with the market in terms of wages is vital to that program being able to continue to serve the number of students. And we have a high number of students in the district. Was it like 176 last time we checked? But in that ballpark this year now, too?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, yeah.
So we're looking for a motion to vote to approve the rate changes so that Tony can get this information out to families prior to the lottery and for next year.
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just for our enraptured viewing audience, when I had a child that participated in SAC, it was the best deal in town. And it's still the best deal in town. I know a 5% increase sounds large, but this goes up to 6 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So you're looking at less than $8 an hour for after-school care, which my younger child, who's beginning to babysit, would tell me is not enough money.
I mean, I'm impressed that they haven't raised the rate since 2021.
Yeah, it's been a long
Feels
time.
like everything else goes up every single year, so.
Yep. So I think it's eminently reasonable.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Thanks. The next item in your packet, so we are actively trying to recruit substitutes for the following positions: custodians, daily custodial subs, food service subs, and SAC substitutes. Currently, we do not have subs for these roles, and we are, moving people around and trying to cover shifts. But in order to more effectively advertise and recruit, we felt that it was important to establish what the daily sub rate for these roles would be. And so we are proposing a custodial sub rate of $20 an hour, a food service sub rate $18 an hour, and SAC substitute $16 per hour. So we are asking the committee to approve these proposed substitute rates for these hourly positions. Miriam, I don't know if you want to add anything about how the rates were.
Yeah, so we looked at all the hourly rates for our daily sub teachers, our long-term subs, and our sub paras, and probably next year we'll come back with some alternate proposals for those folks, but this year we have subs who are working in those roles now. We have no subs, and as Dr. Lardy said, we are struggling to get folks to work in these positions and need some. So we're in a position now where we'd like to raise those rates. Also, I point out that the food service program and SAC, again, are self-supporting, self-sustaining programs and can support both of those increases if we were to find subs, hypothetically. And then again, our budget would support the custodial substitutes. But we think these are in line with where we might be able to get somebody to fill those roles.
What are are these the current rates? Or?
We don't have any current rates.
Oh, okay.
Actually, our food service and our SAC substitutes right now are at $15 an hour, and we don't have a current custodial rate. And so that's why we're looking at an increase for both SAC and food service.
Do we share a sub pool with Rentham and Plainville?
I would say that specifically in the food service area, that's a pool we could share, and their rates are a little higher than ours on a contracted basis. And in terms of the substitute rate, their rates are also a little bit higher than ours. But we have some limitations in terms of rates that we can pay to our staff as we look at the district in a whole, in terms of rates we pay our paras and et cetera. So we try to align that, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So that's kind of where we're trying to get to, but that we do draw from the same pool of candidates. So any increase in these types of rates might be beneficial for us.
And I would say, too, as far as the regional, we have a shared food service director who supports the program, but they also don't have subs for food service in Plainville or Rentham, and they don't have custodial subs either. And then the Rentham before and after school program is run by the Y. It's not run by their staff. So there could be opportunity, but we're sharing a pool of none. So it doesn't go very far. But
empty.
It is something that we've talked about. And as Marion pointed out, the food service hourly wages are different in the three communities, and we are not the top. So if we want to share those services more consistently, we'd have to probably look at that in a future time. But again, to be able to put this out in the Wednesday's words, and we may have parents that are interested, we wanted to have a rate to market. And we do have some college kids that will be coming back in May, so we are proactively trying to build strategy for recruitment and thought the rates would be helpful. So looking for a motion and a vote on those.
I move to approve the proposed substitute rates for fiscal year 25-26.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next we have Jill Levy here, who is our preschool lead teacher, team chair, and she is going to speak about the proposed rate, tuition rates for preschool next year in Anna's absence. So I'll turn it to you, Jill.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening. The public preschool here in Norfolk Public Schools, we're looking to increase our fees for this upcoming year, as well as add or shift some of programming. Just as a quick history this year, we have 5 different types of programming for typically developing peers in the community that we offer spots through our lottery program. We have, for 3-year-olds, we have a 2-day half-day program, and we have a 3-day half-day program. For our 4 and 5-year-olds, we offer 3 different programs. We offer what we call a half-day, 5-day, half-day program. We offer what we call a hybrid program, where 3 days are half days and 2 days are full days to support students. And then one program for 4 and 5-year-olds is a full day, Monday through Thursday. All preschools on Friday are half days, but we have a full day program. For special ed students, for 3-year-olds, we offer extended programming for students who may need additional services per their IEPs. For 3-year-olds, we offer non-integrated hour time to support their needs. For our 4 and 5-year-olds, we have additional 2 or 4 half-day programming to support their needs. And we also have, full-day substantially separate programming for students who have more significant needs, who need that direct time on teaching. So for this upcoming school year, and our current rates by the hour is $6.67. So for the upcoming school year, we're proposing a tuition rate and a program shift. We're recommending or proposing to increase the hourly rate to attend preschool for our typically developing peers from that $6.67 to a flat $7. We haven't had an increase since 2023, so we are looking to maybe boost that. And then from a programming perspective, our programming is built on special education services and our students' needs, and that can fluctuate every year. So this upcoming year, we're finding that we do not need a hybrid model, but we need full-day programming again. So instead of the hybrid model, we would have 2 full-day programs where it's Monday through Thursday full days and the half-day Fridays.
So thanks, Joe, for providing the overview. So again, as Jill said, a program shift to meet the needs of the students that we have entering or in our current preschool, and then a proposed tuition increase from $6.67 an hour to $7 an hour, and that's for tuition is for the typically developing peers that enter through the preschool lottery. Again, that keeps our costs comparable to all of our neighboring districts. Again, part of the preschool tuition supports and offsets the cost of salary for staff that work in the preschool. Those salaries increase every year with cost of living adjustments, and we have not increased the preschool tuition rate for multiple years now. 2023, I think, was the last time, so for at least 3 years. So we need to make that adjustment in order to continue to fund a portion of the staff and run the programs as we have in the past. So looking for a motion to approve the tuition changes for preschool.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just, if Miriam could double check my math, that's like around 5%, is that? Okay, all right. People prefer percentages. Sense, all right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jill.
All right, moving on to the quarterly bullying report. Again, per district policy, I report to the school committee every quarter the number of reports or investigations of potential bullying that were conducted at each building, consistent with our bullying prevention and intervention plan and the outcomes of those. The last quarter, which went from November 1st to February 1st, there were no reports of potential bullying at the H. Olive Day School. At the Freeman Kennedy, there were 2 reports received that were investigated in accordance with the district procedures and protocols. Of those 2, administrators did determine that 1 report met the criteria for bullying and appropriate steps were taken consistent with those outlined in the plan. The second report did not meet the criteria and appropriate disciplinary measures were taken consistent with the district code of conduct. We continue to provide the comprehensive instruction in anti-bullying using the MARC program as well as our second step program, Open Circle at the H. Olive Day. Overall, the number of reports and investigations has trended down. We had a spike after we returned from COVID, and those are stabilizing and trending down as overall discipline reports have been at the Freeman Kennedy. So happy to take any questions on that. Okay. Next is the budget subcommittee has been working on preparing our draft budget for the fiscal 2027 school year. We have a summary of the changes from the fiscal 26 to 27 budget that Miriam is going to walk through today, and then we'll highlight in your packet. There's also a narrative summary that highlights the changes. So I'll turn it to you, Miriam.
Great. So I'm going to walk through the spreadsheet on the back of your memo. When you look at our current budget, we have a total of $16,234,378. That's where we're starting from. Further down the sheet, you'll see the changes from FY26 to what we're proposing for FY27. So in our Unit A, we're looking at step and lane changes approximating $298,116. That's about a 2.5% increase for 101.8 FTEs. Our lane changes are estimated this year based on requests that we've received, about $62,000, just under that. Other unit adjustments that are contractual, primarily the sick leave buyback, is $57,020. We have quite a few retirements, six members, 5.8 FTE retiring this year at the end of June and or mid-year. That's a saving grace this year for $179,363 reduced, because we are budgeting at a lower rate for those folks. We anticipate hiring at a lower rate on the grid for those folks that are retiring. Our estimated increase for aides is roughly $121,000, and all other folks, $38,123, for total salary increase of about 2.44%, just under $400,000. We're also looking to restore some positions that we've previously had. Last year we had a global developmental delay program. We didn't need that in this current fiscal year based on enrollment and the needs of students, but we are anticipating having to bring that position back for next year, again, based on enrollment. We are adding right now 2.25 school secretaries, basically increasing one of the school secretaries in each building by a quarter of their day, 0.25%, to provide additional support in the front office. And we are increasing the number of sections in our kindergarten for next year, anticipated based on enrollment that we have right now. So we have added an additional kindergarten para for that program. Total restored positions about $143,000. We're also looking at adding 2 new positions, a percentage of 2 new positions, one being a 0.5 clerical payroll support to provide some added controls in place for verification of payroll and for processing of payroll. We're also looking to include a 0.3 counselor that was previously grant funded. We're exploring options for continuing to grant fund that position, but at this point we don't have secured grant funding for that 0.3 of a position, so we've added that amount into the budget, that totaling $27,576. for a total salary subtotal of $598,588, or 3.69%. When we look at the expense side of the budget, we have a reduction in our curriculum adoption line item. You recall this year we had math curriculum included for FY26. We have $50,000, we had 125,000-ish in this year for curriculum adoption. Next year, we've reduced that to leave $50,000 in for science and SEL, so that's a reduction of $89,945. Our facilities budget is level funded this year for FY27. Freeman Kennedy is looking at an increase of $9,753. H. Olive Day is looking at an increase of $16,173. These are for supplies and expenses and textbooks and technology and other building expenses, building level expenses that the buildings support. Our tech department is looking at an increase of $13,200, primarily for infrastructure, for cost of software, and hardware to maintain the infrastructure of the technology within the system. Central office budget is going up $5,900 requested. Our transportation budget, our big yellow buses, up 3.8% at $25,200. Special education, the requests including tuition and therapeutic services and other items for the special ed department, as well as ESY, et cetera. All of those items are an increase of $86,923. The item that is excluded from there is the transportation for special ed students, which is also increasing by 6% for $46,530. And our circuit breaker offset is just under $50,000. This year we have offset $202,000 in circuit breaker. We've offset the budget by what we anticipate spending, which would be $202,000. Next year we're anticipating using $252,000. And circuit breaker is based on a claim that we file each year, and we have to spend that money on a yearly basis. You can't roll it more than 1 year. So whatever we had in the bank in FY25, we have to spend in FY26. And whatever we're going to get before the end of this fiscal year, we have to spend before the end of next fiscal year. So that's why that reduction, that offset to the budget is actually a little higher. So total FY27 estimated increase is 4.08%, $662,382. The total estimated budget request would be $896,760. Happy to answer any questions you might have. No, that was.
So one other thing that I would add is at this point, the budget includes a estimated COLA of 2.5% for all other staff. The para negotiations are already reflected in here, but it has an estimated COLA of 2.5% for all other staff.
And it assumes only 7 kindergartens.
And it assumes 7 kindergartens based on current enrollment.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Only 7, yeah.
7.
But the number 8 was thrown out at some point. So
We've been watching kindergarten enrollment really carefully. We opened kindergarten enrollment now in January so that we have a better sense of where we're trending in order to make placement decisions or to determine the number of sessions we'll need. We are at 134 right now. With 7 sessions, we can take up to 147 per the class size policy. Based on the past year's trend data, a month after kindergarten enrollment closes or opens, we have pretty much the majority of our enrollment. We usually see a difference of 10 to 12 students between the end of a month after kindergarten enrollment ends and then the start of the new year. So that would keep us within, as long as we follow past patterns,
though, right?
we will be within that. But we're going to monitor it closely.
Okay.
And again, this is a budget proposal. We may have to make adjustments as we have an open contract with the teachers that we are working to negotiate, so we may have to make adjustments as we get further in that process or if enrollment changes. But this is what we are estimating at this point, recommending bringing forward the 4%. This is just a preview. We will have at the next school committee meeting the full budget document with all the detail, but we'd like to share with the full committee the direction that we're going in case you have questions now and the budget subcommittee needs to meet again or make modifications before we bring the full draft budget to you. So again, happy to answer any questions people might have.
Can you talk a little bit about the restoration of the .25, the 2 school secretaries, as well as the payroll support, just the current state and the need, just because we don't see it?
Yeah, so we used to have 2 full-time school secretaries in each building. There is one secretary that's a year-round secretary that works during the summer, also does all the, is sort of the lead secretary, does ordering, processing, onboarding, supporting, all of that. And then we have another clerical position that's a 10-month secretary that just works the school year. So we have traditionally always had 2 full-time people in each building. Both of our schools are they're larger elementary schools. So Freeman Kennedy will have 610 students next year. It's not a small school. The secretaries manage student dismissals, calls from parents, or supply needs from the building. We have a callback program, so if students don't show up to school and they're not called in sick, we call and verify attendance with the parents. The offices are really busy. We screen visitors. We have very tight security, so we have to do visual inspections. We interview people when they're coming, manage the contracts for copiers, all of the things that we've had. H. Olive Day is a smaller office. We have about 440, I think. I have to double check with the pre-K, but well over 400 students. But H. Olive Day office is really busy because we have a preschool, and so you have parents that come and pick up, they drop off at 9, so you have the general students coming in at 8:45, then the preschool starts at 9, then you have a dismissal at 11, another session coming in, so it's just a revolving door in those main offices. For budget reasons, a couple of years ago, we had to reduce those positions. We reduced them to 0.8, and then we reduced them further to 0.5. So they're only there half day. The offices are scrambling. We have people jumping in to help, the nurses helping to answer phones. We do have both those people, or the full-time person has to have a lunch break. Coverage at dismissal time is frantic, and we really need to address it. It's just as the enrollment increases and we're dealing with really large schools. Again, one of the secretaries is secretary of the principal, manages communication, correspondence, all the emails that you guys get. It's just not doable. We would love to bring them back to full time, but given the limitations of the budget, we're only recommending a partial restoration for those 2 positions. Clerical payroll support, last year we restructured our business office, so we reduced the assistant business manager to a business specialist, and we reduced the HR director to an HR specialist. We used to have clerical support in that office. We have been operating for a decade with not enough support in the business office. We used to have an HR director that did all of HR. We have 240 employees. That's benefits, payroll deductions, any mortgage all the things that an HR office does. But she also was the payroll administrator and did payroll. That was 2 full-time jobs squashed into one. In separating those out, we now have 1 person doing accounts payable, accounts receivable, and all of payroll, and we don't have any clerical support in that office. We had to do it this year. We were in a really tight budget, but it is not sustainable long-term. We had hoped to maybe be able to partner or share some services with the town, but they're also finding that they're understaffed, so there isn't that opportunity. So I think we absolutely have to correct it, or we just don't have enough staff to keep it operating efficiently. And when people are working in multiple domains and have way too much on their plate, there's a potential for mistakes and errors, and we don't want that to happen. So we are trying to correct that. That's the clerical position. Was there another?
Yeah, that was it.
Oh,
that was
okay.
awful. Thanks.
Any other questions? Again, we, I think, are very fortunate because colleagues in many, many districts are in positions where they're looking at significant staffing reductions. I think we would be in that position if we didn't have the opportunity with the funding, the $500,000 we received last August in reimbursement for the shelter, offset about $250,000 this year, and we're carrying over, and we will be funding an L teacher and L para and part of the math curriculum with those one-time funds. So I just want to be really clear, they're one-time funds and they are gone after fiscal 27. So we are fortunate that we are able to defer some of the significant financial hardships that other districts are facing right now, but they're not going away. They are being deferred because of the use of one-time funds. So I just want to be really clear about that. And we will have a full budget to bring at the next meeting, which is the public hearing. So any other things that I forgot, Miriam, or anything you want to?
Nope, I think you got it all.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be careful leaving. I hear it's starting to snow. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Next on the agenda. So as we talked about, I believe it was at our January meeting, it might have been December, but every year the district, we put together a baseline and benchmark report. This is not a state or any sort of formal required report. This is something that as a district we have provided because we think it's important for both the school committee to have data in order to track our progress and our performance over time, as well as for the community to be able to really get a sense of the return on investment in the schools. We made a few changes to how this report is organized, so I just want to highlight those before we delve in, and then we're going to just highlight some of the summative high-level data. You have the full report. After the school committee reviews it tonight, it'll be posted on our website for the public. At our last meeting, we shared that the DESE, our dark communities, have been updated by the Department of Education, and there are 3 new communities that are identified as like communities to the district, and those are Amherst, Brewster, and Kingston. And we also talked, there were several that were removed from the list. At our discussion, the school committee wanted to retain 2 districts that are high-performing districts as sort of aspirational districts, even though they're no longer in our comparison community, to help us set goals, and that was Concord and Southborough, so we've kept those. We've deleted the others that are no longer part of our comparison group, and we've added the new comparison districts. Additionally, typically when we do this report, we have included data that would include the fall for enrollment for the fall of the 25-26 year. We've changed the structure because most of the data that we're reporting, like the MCAS data, the financial data, that's all based on end-of-year data, and so we were bridging 2 years, so it was a little bit confusing. So what we've done is we've kept this similar to the town report. So this is the 24-25 baseline report. So all the data has 3 years of trend data. It is from the fall of 24 through the spring of 2025 because we have summative data for all of those points. So those 2 adjustments were made, and then we'll walk through this, and hopefully I can see the screen from here, but I might have to come sit down near Katie. So Katie, do you want to just jump through? Also, one other thing, we did reorganize the achievement data, but it had previously been reported by assessment. So we had MCAS data, then we had benchmark data, and then we had other local metrics. We reorganized it by content because I think it's easier to see the trends within math for all 3 assessments and then the trends within ELA. So the first part of the report talks about students in our community. Basically, the demographics of our student body have been pretty stable. We haven't seen a lot of changes over the 24-25 or over the past 3 years. You can see on the table on the left what our student body is comprised of. The fastest growing populations in Norfolk have been our English language learner population, and that has gone up from, I am going to have to come sit closer. That population has continued to increase. I think it's important to note that some of this data, and I'll highlight when we get to it, was impacted by the opening of the Bay State Respite Shelter. So this data is based on the October 1 SIMS report, which goes to the state. At that time, we had very few students enrolled. I think there were like 8. So it had a minimal impact on the demographic data because this is based on your October 1 report that the Department of Ed requires. Even without that, we have seen growth in our population of English language learners within the district. When I started back in 2013, we didn't have any. We have about 45 students now, which is 4.3% of our students receiving L services. The other population that's been growing is our population of students that qualify as low income, and that has grown from 2019 from 4.7% to about 7.7% of our population. Okay, next slide, Vanna. Class size, our average class size in the 24-25 school year was 20. Class sizes obviously are lower at the lower grades, K to 2, and higher in 3 to 6. Typically in grades K to 2, we're seeing class sizes of 19 to 20, in the upper grades 22, 23. Our class sizes are consistently above the school committee target. So our school committee policy sets a target that's aggressive for keeping really small class sizes. So we have a target and then we have a max. Our class sizes are much closer and have been for about 10 years to the maximum allowable class size per the policy. And they are currently higher than most of our comparison benchmarks communities. So if you go into the report, you can see where we fall, but we're on the higher end for elementary class size compared to our comparison districts. If you look at like Brewster, Mattapoisett, Concord, you're seeing class sizes average of 17, 18, Rentham 19, Southborough 19. There's only 4 districts of the comparisons that are in the 20 and 21 range. Special education trends. Students with disabilities comprise 18.1% of our total student population. We have a lower percentage of students with disabilities than the state and most of our comparison communities. And the majority of students in Norfolk receive the majority of their services in a full inclusion setting. That has always been our goal, the least restrictive environment. We do the best that we can to keep our students in district and in the general education setting. Between 2024 and 2025, or the 23-24 and 24 and 25 school year, we have seen some growth in the percentage of students with higher levels of instructional need. So we've seen an increase in the percentage of students that are considered partial inclusion, which means they spend a portion of their day receiving services in specialized settings outside the general education classroom. The number of students in substantially separate programs who spend or receive the majority of the services fully outside the classroom or in an alternate setting has continued to decline. I think both for because it's in the best interest of kids, it's also financially responsible. We've really committed to building strong in-district programs. We try our best to keep our kids with their peers learning in their home school, and then they are able to transition to the middle school with their classmates. But we do have a small number of students that require services that we aren't able to provide here. The cornerstone of education is our teachers and what happens between our teachers and students in the classroom. So we do look at this data as a metric of educational quality. 100% of Norfolk educators are licensed in the field that they teach. 89.6% of our teachers have advanced degrees, so master's or beyond. 50% or 50.4% of our teachers have been in the Norfolk Public Schools for over 10 years. And we have a 93.3 teacher retention rate, which is the 3rd highest of all of our comparison communities. So when people come to work in Norfolk, we have a very strong mentor program. We have a lot of support for our teachers, a lot of professional development opportunities. So when they come, they stay with us. We also look at new teacher retention rate because we want to see if we're recruiting and keeping people new to the field. That's not data that the Department of Ed reports, so that's local data that we analyze. We have a slightly lower rate of new teacher retention, but it's still strong, 85.7%. When we analyze that data further, we find that the teachers that we hired that don't stay with us over the past 3 years, we have had a couple of people relocate, so family moves, moving states, and then we've had a few positions that have been eliminated as a result of the budget. But we are not losing new teachers to neighboring districts, and that's one of the things that we track. Student attendance, this is also good news. I think there's a lot of good news in this report, so I'd like to share that. We have a 95% student attendance rate, which is the 4th highest of all of our comparison districts. It's great to see. We have made progress in addressing chronic absenteeism. I think you probably read or saw in the papers and have seen in past benchmark reports. After the COVID pandemic, in 2019, we saw a significant increase in absenteeism, student absenteeism across the state and across the country. Our chronic absentee rate were higher, and it was about 12.5% back then. We were successful in reducing that down to 6.7% in the 23-24 school year. What we saw in last year was an increase in that chronic absenteeism rate. So it went up to 11% in 24-25. This is a data point that was impacted by the Bay State shelter, and it's by the way it was structured. So because it was a temporary shelter, when students entered the district, they enrolled with us. They were at Bay State for a temporary placement. When they transitioned to another district, they remained enrolled with us until the receiving district enrolled and they started there. Districts had up to 10 days to register and onboard those new students. So during that transition period, they would be reported in Norfolk even though they weren't attending. So that data point did change and impact that. But we're going to watch it closely because we want to make sure that we are continuing to address the absenteeism and that trend continues to remain low in the under 10%.
Did I go too fast?
Yep. Since several years ago, we did our equity audit. Whenever we look at our data, we are disaggregating data to look to see if any subgroup is overrepresented or if there's any equity gaps that we need to be aware of. We do see that there continues to be an overrepresentation of our low-income students in the chronically absent category, as well as some disparities in attendance for L learners. So we have to continue to monitor those, and we are working on strategy to try to provide supports and improve attendance overall. Student discipline, we continue to have extremely low rates of student suspension. There are years that we don't have any students suspended. It's been very low. Both schools have implemented what we call a PBIS system, so a positive behavior incentive or intervention and support program. You've heard a lot about the Falcons to Falcons and the SOAR program at the Freeman Kennedy. And we have seen a dramatic decline in office referrals for behavior or discipline at the Freeman Kennedy. And that data is in your report, but you can see that those numbers have steadily trended down since the implementation of the SOARS program. At the H. Olive Day, the school has implemented quarterly school meetings for community building, and then they have a What's the Buzz program. So students being caught being responsible, respectful, to recognize and reward positive behavior. So again, discipline referrals to the office, which tend to be for more significant discipline offenses, have decreased dramatically, and we continue to look and monitor and work to reduce the overrepresentation of our male students in the disciplinary data. Vocal climate survey was something we discussed adding to the report this year at our last school committee meeting. The vocal climate survey is a survey that is generated by the Mass Department of Education. It's administered 4th and 5th graders during the MCAS window, and it captures their perspective on their school climate and looks at 3 different categories. So it looks at engagement, safety, and overall environment, and combined those 3 categories make up the school climate. Students' responses are then graded and they're assigned a scaled score, and the cut scores for the scaled score are as follows. So if students report a low satisfaction or view their school climate least favorably, their scaled score would be under 30 points. 31 to 50 points, students are reporting a somewhat favorable climate. 51 to 70 is overall favorable climate. They feel safe and comfortable at school, and the most favorable climate is over 70. Now, if you don't like the terminology that the state used, that's their cut scores. Least favorable, most favorable. But overall, you can see that we want to see our data in between 51 and 70 points. We want to see our students comfortable, safe, and feeling engaged at school. We only have 2 years of data here. They've only done this twice, so we're still establishing benchmarks. We can't speak to long-term trends in this, but overall our scores were really positive. Overall our students are on the high end of that favorable range, feeling safe and comfortable at school. Student safety was the strongest for our 4th grade. Again, 65, 70 is the max you can get in that category. So the students feel very safe at school, report feeling comfortable in the environment and engaged in school. Some of the categories and statements that students within the engagement category that students endorsed with less rigor were things like, I like to learn more about what I'm learning at school at home, that they weren't really championing that one. Or
I think it's also important to note they take this survey after they finish the MCAS.
Yeah. So they might be done learning for the day. And then another category is that within that is teachers use my ideas to help others learn. So again, we look at this and we think about the data, we look at patterns and trends and how we can use it. Within the safety overall, kids reported feeling very safe in school. The categories that they felt or they rated lower were, I feel safe sharing my feelings in class. Not super surprising at that age level, and students help others when they're upset, even if they're not friends. So these are some things that we want to look at and continue to think about. Again, and then under the environment category, the two that stood out as lower rated were at home. I already mentioned that one. I like to learn more about what we're learning about in school, and students have a voice in establishing school rules. So that's something to think about, but we do have pretty clear guidelines and rules that are established for our students. So how we engage students at the classroom level, they work as a team to build the classroom rules, but not necessarily at the school level. So grade 5, the grade 5 scores were slightly lower than grade 4 for both the 2 years assessed. But again, we only have 2 years of data, but they're still all well within that favorable, on the higher end of the favorable range. It's interesting, the statements that were less endorsed in 1st grade were the same ones that were less endorsed in 5th grade, so same kinds of areas. But again, we will look at that information and we continue to use it for planning. Once we have a 3rd year of data from this spring, we will start to look at trends and patterns within that. So. Budget comparisons. We talk about this regularly when we do the budget update. Our per pupil spending in FY 2024, and the state, it's important to note, the state is a year behind in releasing financial data, and part of that is because some of the federal grants are allowed to carry over and spend in the fall, and they don't do the final analysis until all those grants are spent down. So the per pupil comparisons are a year behind, that lag a year behind. The most recent data that's released is FY 24 instead of FY 25. But in FY 24, our average per pupil was $17,848. Our spending was about $4,000 below the state average last year on per pupil, and we do still remain, even with the change of comparison communities, second to the lowest in per pupil spending, with only Kingston falling below us at this time. Again, I had highlighted in that chart that all of the towns that are, which you guys don't have, so I'll show for the audience, but we're seeing an increasing number of our comparison districts also falling behind the state threshold, or the average state per pupil. So we did talk about that when we were talking about advocacy for Chapter 70 funds, that the small suburban districts are now falling behind the state because a lot of additional competitive grants are funneled to our gateway cities and urban districts. So the financial challenges are not unique to Norfolk. They are shared by many of our comparison districts. And then I'm going to turn it to Katie, and I'll go back to my seat to talk through. I'll be your MC.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about some of the academic achievement data we have, both from MCAS and from our own district benchmarks. We spent a lot of time recently talking about the MCAS data, so we're going to just kind of do an overview of them. So this first screen shows our Acadians literacy screener. Acadians is our screener for early literacy skills such as phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. It's given at all grades K to 6, and from grades 2 to 6, there's a real strong upwards trend. About 75% of our students are at or above the expectation. In kindergarten and 1st grade, there's a little bit more variability, especially this past year, but that's very developmentally typical. Students are all developing at their own rate, and as they get further up in the grades, they start coming more together, but when they're this young, there's a big range. So this chart shows our ELA MCAS, and the numbers are the percentage of students that are meeting or exceeding benchmarks. At one of our past school committee meetings, it was requested that we separate the exceeding and meeting. So we did that here, but we also bolded the combination since that's oftentimes how we talk about it. So we've had slow but generally positive progress. We have been trending upwards since the pandemic. I think one thing that's important to note when you're looking at this chart itself is that it shows us the last 3 years, and then it shows us pre-pandemic. So you don't see the original dip in 2021, 2022. And so if I'm looking across third grade, for example, they were at 63%, and then the next year that's showing is 61%, but there was work done to get back up to that. So you're going to see on the next slide that we're going to break it down a little bit more, but writing is really our area of focus that we really want to improve on. Some of the things that we're doing this year are we have a real clear focus, scope, and sequence. We are using HMH into reading and into literature, which is a high-quality curricular resource. We're working on calibrating our scoring of writing, and we're doing a lot of writing coaching as well. So you can see here on this graph that this is what kind of tells our story a little bit more. Reading and language are our relative strengths. That tells us our students are able to really analyze text and understand what they're reading. And so the next step would be then helping our students express their thinking about these texts in writing. So that would be the writing and essays. And I think it's been a clear focus that we've been working on.
Essays. It was part of also when we selected a new program, we knew this was an area of need, so we looked for a program that was strong in addressing the written component.
Okay, we can keep going. It is important to talk a little bit about the achievement gap, and the data here is the achievement gap between students with disabilities and our aggregate, all of our students. On the left chart, it's a little bit different than the right, so we'll start on the left. That shows the gap between our students with disabilities and our all-student cohort on Acadians, and then from grades 3 through 6 also on MCAS. And you can see there's a gap. Our students with disabilities are not having the same outcomes as our students without disabilities. So this is something that we really want to work on. It's been something that the district has been aware of, and we are working on looking at some of the programming, some of the resources that we're using. One of the things that we've done to try to close this gap is more inclusion. And special education, by definition, means every student gets what they need. And so not every student needs full inclusion, but when possible, if we can have more students in the classroom getting grade level instruction, that's going to help us. And so if we look on the right side, this is the percent of students who are meeting and exceeding expectations in ELA. So 31% of Norfolk's students with disabilities are meeting and exceeding, which shows room for growth. But the positive side is this is our, listed here are our comparison districts, our DART districts, with the addition of Concord and Southborough as high achieving districts. And we are right on top of the whole list of districts with our success with our students with disabilities.
Yep. So our students with disabilities are performing at a significantly higher rate on these state metrics than almost all of our comparison communities. Although, again, we want to continue to work to close that achievement gap.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just our regional or our DART district comparisons in general. So this is the aggregate. You can see we're in the top half. We're kind of in the middle. And it shows our 2019 percent of students who are meeting and exceeding expectations on benchmark, which was 67%. And we are making slow but steady progress, and we are now up to 58%. So we still have a 9% gap between where we were pre-pandemic and now. And if you look on the right, it shows just all the same just a little list of all the differences between pre-pandemic and current. And so we have some work to do, but we've been working in the right direction. So now we're going to talk a little bit about math. What you see here is the percent of students who scored, they met or exceeded our district expectation. You can see in grades K to 3, it's all 90 to almost 100% of our students are meeting and exceeding the benchmark. The jump in the rigor and the complexity of mathematics from 3rd to 4th grade is huge. The jump from 4th to 5th is even greater. And so you're going to see when we look at MCAS as well that the 4th, 5th grade area, there is a difference in their scores. And that really is reflective of the level of complexity that, that the students are required to be thinking about. Our new math program has really elevated student thinking. Just a little spoiler alert, we've been working through our mid-year benchmarks this year, and we're seeing amazing scores, really great growth, because we're giving our students the opportunity to sit with problems and be a little bit uncomfortable and talk with their peers and work through things, and that's giving them a much deeper understanding. So we're really hopeful to see some good results. For next year, I will say, as I'm sure you've heard before, when you adopt a new program, it usually takes at least 3 years to really realize the results and the impact of it. Thank you. But I'm still hopeful that we'll see a good impact next year. So this right here is our math MCAS. You'll see again, grade 3 is at 72%. They have now exceeded their 2019 scores by 13%. Grade 4 has also surpassed their 2019 scores by 3%. So grades 5 and 6 are still working towards that rebound, but we are making progress, and we hope to see more in the coming years with our new math program. So like we looked at the strands for ELA, these are the domains for math. 6th grade has different domains, but I try to kind of match them up with what they're closest to in the earlier grades. So you're going to see, again, grade 3 shows really strong growth. Grade 3 was not academically impacted by the pandemic. So our current 5th graders were in preschool during 2020, and then in kindergarten when we came back 2 to 3 days a week. Our current 6th graders were in kindergarten when everything shut down, and when we came back to 2 to 3 days a week, they were in 1st grade. So our 5th and 6th graders are the last of our grade levels that we're going to see that have been impacted by, I shouldn't say impacted. Everyone was impacted, but that their academic achievement was really, or their learning was impacted. So grade 5 is where the expectations really jump. You can go back one. Thank you. Our relative strength is numbers in base 10, and you can also see that in the number system in grade 6. That's really, really important. And if we think back to the math benchmark data where K1, 2, and 3 were really strong, those are the grade levels where we're really building the foundational understanding of our number system. Grades K to 2 especially, but grade 3, takes it to the next level. And then grade 4 starts introducing a lot more complexity. Grade 4 starts working with fractions a lot more, whereas grade 3 they're learning about naming fractions, they're learning about the unit fraction. So grade 4 takes us to the next level, as does 5 and 6. You can go on. Thank you. For the math achievement, this again is between students with disabilities and our students without disabilities. One thing I didn't mention with ELA, which I meant to, it's true for both, is we also did look at the achievement gap between males and females, and there was no significant difference. There was some of them, males were up a couple, others, females were up a couple percent, but it was minimal, so we don't feel like that's really anything as strong data that we want to look too much into right now. However, our students with disabilities, we are still seeing that they have different outcomes. You can see in MCAS, it's a little bit wider of a gap than it is on our district benchmark. One thing to note for our district benchmark is This year, we have switched from our benchmark that we used in the past years to a nationally normed standard-based benchmark. So that will be much more, or is already much more in line with MCAS than what we've done in the past. In the past, we really did use a benchmark to determine how students were succeeding within our math program, and we were assessing a lot of those skills, which was really helpful to know where we have strengths and weaknesses. But now that we have this really great resource that will be nationally normed, we're excited, and that's the data I was talking about. There was lots of growth. The reports that we get from the new benchmark data are really encouraging. If you look at, again, at our comparison districts on the right, we are right at the top. The only district whose students with disabilities are scoring at a higher percentage than us is Southborough by 1%. Southborough is no longer one of our actual DART districts. It is a district that we are, looking up to. So we are really proud of the work we've done and of our students with disabilities and how hard they work with our special ed and our regular ed teachers. And we are going to keep supporting and keep on pushing them in the right direction.
Yeah. And I would just say that the difference between Norfolk and Southborough, that 1%, is probably not even statistically significant. We are we're at the top of the performance.
Okay, so again, this is our regional district comparison. So this is taking all of math MCAS and all of our students into account. And you can see that we are closing our pandemic dip, and we are down to only 3% difference. So we've had steady increase, all of our data is really trending upwards, and we're hoping to see another nice jump this year.
And also, I would note here, we are at the top of all of our DART comparison communities, and the two that we've retained for that are high achieving are the only two outperforming Norfolk in mathematics.
The order that they're in is the percentage of students that are meeting and exceeding. So when you look at the difference, that's not in order. That's why the difference is just the difference between their pre-pandemic and post and 2025 scores. And finally, to summarize and share some conclusions for the whole presentation, Norfolk continues to offer a really strong educational program. We're really proud of it. We're proud of our students. We're proud of our teachers. We do have some clear priorities that we really want to continue working on: writing, math rigor, problem solving, and equitable outcomes for all of our students. As Ingrid shared earlier, we have exceptional educators that are so dedicated to their students and families. They're appropriately licensed, most have advanced degrees, and they are always willing to learn more. It's a wonderful community to work in, I also am a parent in this community, and I'm happy to be able to send my children here. Our teacher retention and student attendance are high, while our discipline rates are low. Students are outperforming the state in most of our comparable districts, even with our lower, but we'll call it efficient spending. We really work hard to spend our money in the places that we really feel are most important. And I think that our data is showing that even with lower funding, we're doing a lot with a little. And it's evident that the community, the school systems, parents, educators are all committed to working together for continuous growth. And that's our report. Thank
and
you.
Of course, in the actual report that you received, there's a lot more detail and explanation in the narrative. As I shared, we'll post it on our website. We have this so that it's available for the community. And then I'll walk over to my seat and take any questions that people have.
Thank you for being Vanna.
No problem. Any questions, comments, thoughts on the baseline report?
I think the additions and improvements are great.
Great, thanks. I felt like it was more cohesive having all the academic, all the math in one place so you could see trends across assessment. So, and I think having the meeting and exceeding breakdown also helps us, will help us for goal setting. So,
it's really visual.
as I said, I was really, really pleased to see where we are in relation to our comparison districts, that we're seeing steady trends upwards. We're in the upper ends of achievement, and for all students. So our students with disabilities are outperforming their cohort across the region too. So I think it just speaks to the strength of the programs and the hard work of all of our teachers and staff and parents. So it's nice to have years where we have good news to share. So that was good news. So we will post, we will post that, and happy to answer questions if anybody has other questions, or if things come up in looking at the report that you want to ask about, feel free to reach out.
Do you think you'll send it out in Wednesdays? It's just so comprehensive, and it's
I'll
really
put a link to it. Yeah, we'll put a link to it in the Wednesday's Words, and then it'll be on the front page of our website. So we will highlight, and then we'll also put the school committee link. So if people want to watch the presentation, we'll put that in there. But yeah, thank you, and that's a good idea.
No, it's a really impressive report.
Then the last thing on the agenda tonight was just an update on the MSBA. So I wanted to share just a little bit of information. As we know, or as you know, we were invited to participate with the MSBA in a school feasibility study and a potential school building project. Just a few details. So our eligibility period begins on April 1st. So when you're invited, they have staggered start dates for funding reasons with different districts. We start on April 1st. And the first things that we'll have to do is to submit an educational plan, so how the space would be used, how it meets the needs of the community. I'll be working on that with MSBA to get that ready for submission. One of the next steps from there is that the town will have to establish a building committee. That, I believe, is appointed by the select board, so they'll have to advertise, interview people, and appoint a formal building committee. And then the next obligation is that the town appropriate funding for a feasibility study. What that cost is going to be can range. We have some data. I'll have to work with the town finance director, our business manager, to determine what the town wants to estimate the borrowing cost to be. Projects of similar size and scope for this stage have been between 1.5 and 2 million. Because of the amount is probably going to exceed the levy limit, the town will have to borrow for that, which means that it will have to go to town meeting for approval and again to the ballot. The timeline for that's a little tricky because there's lots of different timeline requirements. So it has to go through town meeting, and then it has to go to a ballot. There isn't a specific order. It has to pass both in order to go forward. Typically, we try to go to town meeting first, present, get the town meeting vote, and then go to the ballot because elections have a cost. So if it failed at town meeting, we don't want to absorb the cost of printing ballots and running an election. However, if we were to go to the May town meeting, I believe, and Rob Garrity is going to confirm that for me, but there's a timeline from the date of the meeting vote to when you have to hold the election.
Yep.
Yeah, which he believes is 90 days, which means the election would then have to be held as a special election over the course of the summer, which is not the best time to have an election because people are traveling. If we delay it, we can run the ballot election commensurate with one of the state elections, either the state primary in September or the November 3rd election. If we do that, we are responsible for the cost of the ballot, but the staffing's already there, and it's less expensive because we're just funding the ballots and running it commensurate with the town election. So it would be a separate ballot at that time. That probably makes the most sense. You'll get a higher voter turnout, more participation, lower cost. However, then that would have to be voted on at the fall town meeting. The election is November 3rd. They are now anticipating holding the town meeting after that. So it would go in the reverse order, to the ballot first and then to the town meeting. The only problem with that is that we will be responsible for the cost of the ballots regardless of whether it passes at town meeting. So if we go to the ballot and we pay for it and then it doesn't pass, we've absorbed that election cost. I think that's unavoidable at this point. What it would allow us to do would be for the school committee, because committees can give reports at Springtown meeting. The school committee could give a report on, the progress, the timeline, update the public, because if we don't go to town meeting until after the ballot, we don't have a chance to address the community and share information. So I would suggest, based on the information we have at this point, that we consider providing an update at the May town meeting, explaining to the public what we anticipate the ballot cost or the feasibility cost would be, what that would look like, what the process is, and then potentially go forward with a ballot commensurate with the November election and then the fall town meeting. Per MSBA regulations, we have until December 20, I think it's the 23rd or the 26th, I can't remember, but that week to appropriate the funding. So we have to have the educational plan, the building committee, and the funding appropriated in order to continue to remain working with MSBA. If any of those three things aren't done, we can't move forward to the next phase, and we could risk losing the funding. So I just wanted to give the committee an update because it's not a clean timeline. There's not the ideal timeline based on the different regulations. But my recommendation would be to consider, as I said, an update at the May town meeting so we have a chance to have the community ask questions, give information. We certainly can hold public forums in the fall, and to consider the November election and the town meeting. But just wanted to put it out there for conversation. We don't have to vote on it at this point, but didn't know if people had questions or thoughts or things you want me to maybe get for information to come back with, and then we can talk further at the next meeting.
Not to add something to everybody's already busy schedules, but I'm wondering if it would be prudent, because so much of this is done in concert with the select board, to try and schedule a joint meeting with the select board, just so that everybody fully understands, everybody's in the same room discussing the process, understanding the timeline, and understanding the asks from each individual body and how they have an impact on the outcome. That, it's not a suggestion that we need this building committee, it's a requirement of grant funding. It's, that all of these things need to be happening with not a huge degree of urgency, but a sense of urgency, so that the opportunity is not missed.
I think that's a really good idea. The select board does have to call for the ballot election 35 days prior. Like everything has a timeline. They have to call for an election 35 days prior to the election in order for the election to be held. So they do have a role in all of this. So it might make sense to have a joint meeting to talk about timelines and the best way to move forward. We could also tack that on to a school committee. Like we could invite them to join like our April meeting or something like that, and we could maybe have a shared meeting that month. I think we did that once before. We did our agenda and then they joined, and we did it so that it's not another meeting night out for people. But if you're interested, I could pursue that with Rob and see what his thoughts are. But I think that could be efficient and helpful.
I think it could be helpful, and I'm stealing the idea, because after the meeting where we all called in to learn that we had been awarded the grant or invited to participate, I think one of the communities that had also been invited to participate stated they had already had this on their calendar like a month later to have a joint meeting, so they can, I think just for communicating how the process is now different and how the impact would be different, but also how the timeline will be different, and just what the expectations are. I think it might be helpful.
It'd be helpful too, because having a conversation about the project, how it works, what's involved. A lot of people will watch select board meetings who maybe don't watch school committee meetings, so it reaches a larger audience too.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So before our next meeting, I can reach out to Rob Garrity and have him check with the select board and see if they're interested in a joint meeting and come back with that information to the next meeting. Okay. That's all I have for tonight, which was a lot, so thanks for hanging in there. There's a lot tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to committee and liaison reports. For policy, we've included, these were in the packet 2 weeks ago as well, so this is just the second reads of the gifts to and solicitations by staff. as well as the access to buildings and grounds after.
And there were no recommended changes after the last reading.
Right. Just a second reading for now. If anyone has any questions, let us know. Peter and I too talk about it at our next meeting. Feel free to let us know. Nope. Okay. Budget, anything else to add other than what we heard
I was
tonight?
going to say, we went pretty much in detail.
Heard from us.
Building committee, we just talked about. King Philip, Grace is not here. CPAC presented, we're moving along.
PTO, Heritage
Any other
Night, great
liaison
event.
updates?
I have not heard from Mary Kate, and I was not at our last meeting, so I think we're now fully out of cycle with the timeline she and I had discussed, so I will.
I actually met with Mary Kate today, and they were really pleased with Heritage Night. They're working with the CPAC on an upcoming fundraiser and have been really happy with the partnership that they've been able to do some joint events. They have, just did a teacher grant cycle, so things are going well. They're continuing to work on recruiting volunteers, which I hear as a theme, but I think that pretty much covers what they had for recent.
Okay. Moving on to new items, there are minutes in your packet from our January 27th meeting. So I would be looking for a motion to approve the minutes as written. So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? I think it's still January 21st, so we just want to change the date at the top.
Oh, yeah.
We rescheduled it.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That's incidental, so I don't think I need to amend it to be.
Yeah, we can just change it, yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right, now I am just looking for a motion to, next school committee meeting, the
March 10th, and that's the public hearing on the budget as well, which Adrian is putting in the paper per the requirement, and we will have the draft budget ready in advance.
What's the timing? When do we usually do? We do that first, right?
Yeah, we do it first at 7 o'clock, and we will have the budget ready for anybody who wants to pick it up the Friday prior to the meeting in the business office, and it'll be in your packets electronically Friday.
March 10th.
And typically we do the budget hearing first, and then followed by a school committee meeting.
And the public is encouraged to attend. If we get more than 10 people, I'll bake a cake.
Lots of room in the cafeteria, plenty of seating. All right, just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.